Pay drivers. What's the big deal? Welcome back, Formula One fans, to another video. As you'd expect, racing drivers are paid quite a lot of money to compete in Formula One. Lewis Hamilton is currently the highest paid driver on the grid, earning around a cool $30 million from Mercedes. On the other end of the pay scale, rookie Yuki Tsunoda earns just $500,000 from AlphaTauri. Obviously, on top of that, drivers will earn money through sponsorship, advertising deals, merchandising, and other side gigs. Pay drivers, meanwhile, have been part of Formula One for years. They are drivers who either don't take a salary from their teams, or take just a nominal salary and instead bring money to the team in the form of sponsorship to secure their seat in a race car. We have two obvious examples of this in the current driver lineup. Lance Stroll drives for Aston Martin, a team that is conveniently owned by his father, billionaire Lawrence Stroll. There's no way Lance isn't going to have a seat in F1 when his father is paying for everything. We also have Nikita Mazepin, whose father Dmitry Mazepin owns fertilizer company Uralkali, who just happens to be the new title sponsor of the Haas team. There are also some drivers who bring sponsorship in a less direct route. We saw in Drive to Survive that part of the reason Gunther Steiner brought Mick Schumacher on board at Haas was because he was seeking German investment, and they wanted to see a German driver on the team. Some teams could not exist in F1 without pay drivers. Formula One is expensive. It costs crazy amounts to run an F1 team. In 2019, Mercedes' team budget was $484 million. Even bottom-of-the-grid Williams spent $132 million. From this year, the team's operating under a budget cap of $145 million. But there's quite a few things not covered by the cap, including driver salaries. Teams like Mercedes and Ferrari are supported by other divisions in their parent companies, usually the road car production and sales. But teams like Williams or Haas have to find other avenues to fund their racing teams, and that's where pay drivers come in. That's not to say that being a paid driver means you're only there for the money. There are many great drivers who will have had their spot on a team secured thanks to the sponsorship they bring. Formula One is an expensive sport, and it takes a lot of money for drivers to get to the upper echelons. We wouldn't have some of the drivers we know and love today without sponsorship, so it's not all a bad thing. The movie Rush showed the moment Niki Lauda dumped a bag of money in front of the team to secure a drive. He gave March £100,000 in 1972 for a seat, then paid BRM £80,000 for a drive just 1 year later. He later moved to Ferrari, where he became a paid driver, and went on to win 3 world championships throughout his career. Pastor Maldonado, while best known for being the driver who could crash into anyone and everyone, had sponsorship from his home country's national oil supplier, PDVSA, bringing a whopping $42 million to Williams in 2011. Despite his crash-happy ways, he did secure a win at the 2012 Spanish Grand Prix. Even Michael Schumacher, in a roundabout way, started out as a paid driver. As part of the Mercedes Junior Driver Programme, Michael's seat in the Jordan car in the 1991 Belgian Grand Prix was secured with a payment of $150,000 from Mercedes to Jordan. Sergio Perez got his start in F1 thanks to a sponsorship deal with Telmex, that's Telecommunications Mexico, and then Team Sauber. 10 years later and he's driving for Red Bull, one of the top 2 teams on the grid. Pay drivers often get a great deal more scrutiny and judgment than paid drivers, but in reality they are just the same mix of talented and talentless as everyone else. We've seen some of the best drivers in the sport come with the paid driver tag, but we've also seen a couple of the weakest. And nowadays, we see the pay driver label being thrown around a lot as an insult in the forums and comment sections, with fans using the term to mean that a driver wouldn't otherwise be in Formula One. We saw this a lot with Lance Stroll, especially towards the end of the Racing Point days, as his dad had more and more control over the team. It was easy to argue that his dad was the only reason he had a seat, especially when other drivers who had established fan bases were losing seats and struggling to find a drive. When Lawrence Stroll bought out Racing Point, it meant Esteban Ocon lost his seat with the team, and this was at a time when Perez and Ocon were having some amazing wheel-to-wheel battles on track. It hurt to see Ocon go in favour of Stroll. And again, when it became clear that Sebastian Vettel would move to Racing Point Aston Martin, we knew it would be Perez leaving the team and not Stroll because of his father. But Lance Stroll is starting to make us all think again. Yes, he almost certainly would not be exactly where he is today without his dad's money, but he had some amazing drives last year, and so far this year is outperforming 4-time world champ Vettel. I would argue he has now proven that he could earn his place in F1 on talent alone. Which brings us back to Nikita Mazepin. In a similar situation to Stroll, he is in F1 courtesy of his father's money. Haas last year were desperate for financial investment, and the sponsorship brought by Eurocali is arguably the main reason they're able to compete at all this year. But for the fans, some are arguing it's not worth it. Mazepin came in with a sullied reputation for getting aggressive with other drivers in F2, for offensive tweets, and a wholly inappropriate Instagram video that launched the hashtag #WeSayNoToMazepin. The sponsorship has seen the car livery change completely, so it now resembles the Russian flag that Mazepin is unable to race under. And while he's only had a few races so far, he's really done very little to salvage his reputation on the track. He's spun the car or landed in the gravel so often that even official publications have accidentally called him Mazepin.
Get on the gas.
Yeah, is he going to get on the pedal? Yeah, on the gravel. And then it's the equivalent of a high side, isn't it, Damon, on a motorbike when it just snaps like, yeah.
He's not making friends with any of the other drivers, summed up nicely by Charles Leclerc's disgusted "Mazepin will never change" comment on team radio in FP1 at Barcelona.
Turn 4.
Mazepin will never change.
Oh.
Mazepin will never change. Charles Leclerc was...
Mazepin, so far, is living up to every negative stereotype about pay drivers. But it is early days for him. He has time to turn things around. That's his reputation, not the car, and prove that money isn't the sole reason he has an F1 seat. Only time will tell if he's a Lance Stroll or a Pastor Maldonado. Wherever you land on the pay driver debate, good, bad, or ugly necessity, it's important to remember that, much like so many other aspects of racing, there are positives and negatives to it. In an ideal world, everything would be decided on merit, but we're in a far from ideal world, and F1 is at the end of the day a business for many involved. We're not going to get away from pay drivers anytime soon, but hopefully we'll see more Checos and Strolls amongst them, and fewer Maldonados. So what do you think to the pay driver debate? Should there be more rules regarding them, or is it ultimately something the sport needs to continue? Let us know below, and remember to like, subscribe, and check out Formula1.net for articles, opinions, and more. Thanks for watching.